I love you, Cleveland, and I love you, Ohio, and a very pleasant welcome to this week's version, Bonus Time with Drennan, on the Big Play Sports Network. Hi, I'm Bruce Drennan, along with Ryan Smith, my producer. Great to have you aboard for this week's version. Ryan, how you doing, partner?
I'm doing very well, Bruce. It is a wonderful day here in Cleveland. We got some extensions done for the men in the front office there in Berea. Very excited about that.
Big deal. Are you really excited about it? I mean,
Oh,
it was
yeah,
a
I am,
foregone
Bruce.
conclusion, was it not?
It was, but it's still good to see it inked in paper. It's always
is?
good.
Now, is that going to make you sleep better tonight?
Honestly, Bruce, it might a little bit. I might get an extra 5 minutes of peaceful rest, knowing we got a little leadership set in stone.
I don't really want to devote. We have so much more to cover today. I don't want to devote hardly any time to that because it was a foregone conclusion. The real key will be after this season, this upcoming season, to see whether that was warranted to extend both of them or it was another screw up by the ownership because of the high expectations. So this season will determine whether this was a great move or a horrible move. But it was a foregone conclusion, everybody. I mean, what are you going to do, fire both of them right now? Forget it. Ridiculous. Denny Kuntz is going to be joining us in the second segment. You probably don't know who he is, but you're going to know. He's a fascinating man who retired from his business. He had the television trucks that covered all these major sporting events that you and I have enjoyed watching on TV, network, and local for decades. And the people he has met, and the people he's met, the events he's covered, great stuff. You don't want to miss that. That'll be in the second segment. But I want to start things off with the Guardians. They're the big story. Unbelievable baseball team this year. How about those Guardians? Trailing 5-0 going into, and by the way, I want you to take a look at Ryan. He's wearing his Cleveland Guardians hat that we got from Curtis Stanberg last week when we had the front office exec come on the show. And I'm glad to see you're wearing it proudly.
Oh, of course.
My
Always.
wife loved that hat when I brought it home.
It's my new favorite hat.
That's really nice.
My new favorite hat.
Anyway, we're trailing 5-0 in this game. Going into the bottom of the fourth inning against one of the best starting pitchers in all of Major League Baseball in Lugo. And the Guardians rallied for 3 comeback runs, including a 2-run home run by Josh Naylor to cut the deficit to 2. And it was 5-3 going into the fifth. Tristan McKenzie pitched a scoreless fifth and then started the sixth before the fabulous Cleveland bullpen took over. And Cade Smith, Scott Barlow, a former Royal, by the way, and revenge, if you will, and also Emmanuel Clase, who finished by throwing that bullpen combined for 3 2/3 innings of scoreless ball against this Kansas City team. And that great relief allowed the offense to stay in the game and mount the comeback in the 7th inning that led to the victory. Tyler Freeman belted his 5th home run of the year, a 2-run shot to to tie the game. And that was it for 34-year-old Seth Lugo. Lugo entered this game with a 9-1 record and sported the lowest ERA of any pitcher in the American League. But the Never Say Die Guardians wound up pounding Lugo for 5 earned runs on 6 hits and even coaxed a walk out of him, which is very significant because he has only now rendered 18 free passes in 84 in the 3rd innings of work this season. That's absolutely off the charts tremendous. Now, following Freeman's homer off their so-called untouchable ace, Royals superstar MVP candidate Bobby Witt Jr.'s 3-run throwing error allowed the Guards to clear the bases and tally for 3 unearned runs to claim the 8-5 victory at the lead that they would not relinquish. Clase recorded his 19th save of the year. Clase had just been named the American League Reliever of the month of May. It's the 5th time that he's achieved this feat. That's the third most, behind Edwin Diaz, who has eight times, and Josh Hader, 6. The Guardians are now 40-20 and have opened up a 5-game lead over Kansas City. This is only the 4th time in franchise history that Cleveland has won 40 games in their first 60 games of a campaign. The other years, 1954. The Indians won the American League pennant that year and lost in 4 games in the World Series to the Willie Mays New York Giants. That was before they moved to San Francisco. 1995. That year, the Indians were the American League pennant champions and lost to Atlanta in 6 games in the World Series. And then again, they started off in this fashion in 1999. Now, this the opening and the loss to Atlanta, but this opening game of this series against Kansas City had a playoff atmosphere. Very, very intense and much anticipated. But to the man, the Guardians players say that they're treating every series like it's a playoff series. Tonight, Singer versus Sandlin. It's a bullpen game for Cleveland. How can you not get excited about this team? They're an old-fashioned scrap and scrape, never say die attitude. The starting pitching has been more than adequate, considering they don't have Bieber and they haven't had Gavin Williams all year. And the bullpen's been off the charts tremendous, Ryan.
Yeah, Bruce, this is kind of a perfect example of what this whole Guardian season has been. It's been an okay starting pitching performance, but your bullpen has come in and been lughts out. Cade Smith is on another planet, and then Clase is the best closer in baseball, in my opinion, hands down. And then in the first 3 innings, it looked bleak, right? Seth Lugo only, I think, 30 pitches. That's not good. But the second time around, it all started with Steven Kwan. That double ignited the comeback, and it was great to see. Seth Lugo, arguably the best pitcher that they faced to this point in the season, and they were able to rally it, and seeing guys like Tyler Freeman go yard. We didn't have that last year. A guy like Miles Straw, you could never count on a home run like that. That was huge. Josh Naylor's opposite field power is just absolutely insane, and you didn't even need guys like Jose to necessarily make a game-changing play, and I think that is such a big part. And you come back and you win against the Royals, who are now 5-game lead. I'm very excited, Bruce, and I know Cleveland's excited, and you can tell in the attendance.
And you would have thought the way it started off, Witt with 2 home runs, Renfroe with another one. Oh, my goodness. There's a throwaway game. They win the first game of the series. No way do these guys give up. I'm fascinated by that attitude, considering what a young team they are. But, I love the fact that the players that were on this roster a year ago, which is most of them, remember the feeling of not making the playoffs a year ago, Ryan.
Yeah, and I'm sure they do, and things are looking up from here. Obviously, it's a long season, but I think the fact that you're the third ball club to 40 wins says a lot when the other teams, the Phillies and the Yankees. And the AL Central, we thought it was maybe the worst division in baseball. I don't think that's the case this year. It's been kind of shocking, but the Guardians are leading the pack, and right now, pretty much every stat, they're blowing expectations out of the water, Bruce, and it's been a really, really, really fun start to the season.
Leave it to Ryan for the perfect segue. We're 40-20. That's the 3rd best record in the major leagues. The New York Yankees are 43-19, and so are the Philadelphia Phillies, leading the National League East at 43-19. We have now opened up a 5-game lead on Kansas City, but Minnesota's 33-27. They're 7 out. Detroit's 31-30. They're 9.5 out. And the Chicago White Sox at 15-46. That is the worst record in the major league. So, like Ryan said, except for the White Sox, this division is really a surprise to everybody that loves baseball around the country. The American League East has New York leading Baltimore by 2.5. That's been nip and tuck the whole way, and I think it will continue. The AL West, Seattle has emerged with a 5.5-game lead on the defending world champions. They're 35-27, the Mariners are. But Houston is within range at 7 games out, but they just got some more bad news. Christian Javier is going to have Tommy John surgery. So their already depleted starting rotation becomes thinner, and we'll see if they can weather the storm I'm sure they're going to have to make a move or two very shortly to bolster that starting rotation. And they have found themselves in a position where they don't even have many close opportunities for Hader, who was acquired in the offseason. He's been put in a situation where he's in a win or loss situation. The game's in his hands. So that's going to be interesting to see if Houston can mount a comeback. National League, as I mentioned, Philadelphia has really been on a tear. The Atlanta Braves, who lost to Kuna, are 7 games out, although Fried last night had 13 strikeouts for them, and after a sluggish start is really pitching as well as just about anybody in the majors. The Central Division of the National, it's very similar, Ryan, to the American League Central in that it was thought upon as the second worst division next to ours. And look at how balanced it is. You've got Milwaukee 36-25. The Cubs are 6 back. St. Louis 7 out. Pittsburgh 7.5, and Cincinnati 8.5. So there is that gap between Milwaukee and everybody else. But then you've got a 2-game spread between the second place team and the last place team in that division.
Yeah, that's an interesting division because obviously you have the storyline of Craig Counsell between the Brewers and the Cubs, and I think those will be the 2 teams that are at the top of that division as we get more into the season. But then teams like the Pirates, I mean, the ton of young talent highlighted by Paul Skeens, and then you got the Reds, guys like Ellie De La Cruz, who they've been playing well as late. So I would expect that division to be very close all the way to the end.
The American League West has the Dodgers 38-24. They're coasting. San Diego 7 out, Arizona 8.5, and San Francisco 9. So there you have it. It's going to be very fascinating. As I mentioned, Singer versus Sandlin tonight. That's a bullpen game for the Guardians, who fought from behind last night to get a thrilling victory in Game 1 of the series against the KC Royals. Now, as we record for you this week's show, it's June 5th. June 4th, 1974, was the anniversary, unfortunately, of 10-cent beer night here in Cleveland. A rowdy, uncontrollable mob of fans swarmed the field that night, threw lit firecrackers, openly smoked marijuana, which was really illegal back then. A riot occurred in the 9th inning, and players on the field were forced to protect themselves with bats while departing the field. Crew Chief Nestor Shylock declared a forfeit in favor of Texas. The bases were stolen, and I'm not talking about Maury Wills, Lou Brock, or Ricky Henderson here, or even Stephen Kwan. They were never returned. Various players, officials, fans suffered non-fatal injuries. 9 fans were arrested and charged with disorderly conduct. And Mike Hargrove was a member of the Texas Rangers at that time. He was their first baseman. Little did he know, or did we know, that years later he would be a fine player. You know how the Indians got Mike Hargrove, Ryan?
I do not.
I think it's one of the greatest trades in franchise history. The Indians got Mike Hargrove from Texas in exchange for Paul Dade, an obscure outfielder. In fact, he was with San Diego at the time. Mike had already left Texas and was with San Diego. But anyway, Mike went on to have a 290 or 291 lifetime batting average, which is tremendous when you think about it. Human rain delay. He'd have to adjust to the pitch clock today, that's for sure. But that then became the manager of that great team in the 90s when we opened up what was called then Jacobs Field and won the pennant in 95, again in 97, only to be disappointed in both those World Series in 95 in 6 games against Atlanta, in 97, 10th inning against the Marlins in what was the 7th game series. Well, that ugly incident, beer night, along with the Cuyahoga River catching fire, led to the mocking of Cleveland, constant jokes and jabs about Cleveland, a place you don't want to live. Stand-up so-called comedians to this day still call Cleveland the mistake on the lake. A lot of people may not remember a week before in Arlington, Texas, the Rangers and the Indians engaged in a bench-clearing brawl, so there was bad blood between the teams and certainly the drunken fans who showed up that night. A memory we have to remember, but reluctantly so, Ryan.
You know, Bruce, I was not alive for 10-cent beer night. I was not alive for Bottlegate for the Cleveland Browns, so I haven't ever been able to really witness something to that measure of chaos. And I don't think I might ever will. You know, it's a completely different world. There's so much more security, so much more restraints. And I think that's maybe a good thing. Certainly a good thing for the sports and the players involved. But
Yes.
I know the same people that say they were at 10-cent beer night are the same people that said they saw Len Barker's perfect game.
A game I did with Joe Tate, right?
But
Right.
I guess I'll say glad I wasn't there.
Yeah. Well, the NBA championship begins tomorrow night with Dallas visiting the Boston Celtics. The Celtics, appropriately so, are listed as the favorites out of Las Vegas, although I wouldn't be surprised if we see an upset because of the way Dallas has a 5 seed conquered the West in the postseason. And they've got an ace in the hole, in my opinion, in former Cav Kyrie Irving. Because Irving can pose revenge upon Boston for the years he spent there and was much maligned by the media and the fans as not living up to his expectations because they never did win the NBA championship as was anticipated when he was originally acquired by the Celtics. So I think it'll be an interesting series, but I do favor Boston in this one in a 7-game set.
Yeah, I, as a betting man, I think I would bet Boston. I think they're a better team in totality. I think they have more experience in the playoffs. Obviously, Kyrie Irving does as well, but Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have been there. I think Luka's the best player in this series, and that certainly counts for something, especially in the NBA. It's so superstar-centric. But you could make a real argument from the 2 to 4th best player. I mean, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Kyrie Irving. I think they're I could listen to any order. I think on any given night, Luka is obviously the best player, but then outside of that, it really comes down to whose night it is. And the way Kyrie Irving has reaccelerated his career, I think he's on almost a revenge mission, but more of just a redemption story for himself, it seems like. But I think at the end of the day, Boston's more deeper. They have home court advantage. Even though they haven't been playing that great at home in the playoffs, I think Boston also has that revenge that they lost to the Warriors 2 years ago. So I think they're going to get the job done this year, Bruce.
We shall see. It all begins tomorrow night. Boy, how about the way they've dragged the start of this series out? You know, what is the point?
Me and Matt were talking about this. It just seems like forever,
They should be in
ever.
Game 4 right now, you know? God. All right, after a league review, the WNBA has upgraded Kennedy Carter's foul on Caitlin Clark to a flagrant 1. Hooray! Oh, yeah? However, Carter's not even going to be fined. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? What in heaven's name is the league afraid of? Carter legitimately should be suspended. Not just fined, but suspended. That was not a basketball play or move. Period. The ball hadn't even been inbounded. For God's sakes. To make matters worse, Carter's Chicago teammates hugged her, embraced her, high-fived her, and celebrated her action when she returned to the bench. That may be more deplorable than the action itself. The Chicago coach did not, and I want to repeat, did not condone Carter's act, but actually prefaced her statement by saying this, and I quote, "Physical play, intensity, and a competitive spirit are the hallmark of the Chicago Sky. She says she's had a talk with Carter. Big deal. She went on to say, Kennedy got caught up in the heat of the moment. You know what that reminded me of? Did you ever see the movie $1 Million Baby?
With Hilary Swank?
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
Remember the cheap shot that paralyzed her?
Yeah.
This move reminded me of that. Thank God. And I want to get to the injury possibility of this. But first, let me finish. Ever since Clark entered the WNBA, she has been a target for uninterrupted, excessive physical contact. And what has she done? She has exemplified nothing but class. She said, and I quote, I just try to let my play do the talking for me. It's a physical game. It's a fact. It is a fact that opponents of Clark are getting away with fouls and physicality that on other players would not be ignored. It's a double standard. Big time. Why? Why? Jealousy? Because she's white? Because she's straight? The possibilities have to be thrown out to tell it like it is, do they not? This conduct is deplorable. Common sense should prevail. WNBA players should welcome Clark to the league. She's already benefited the players and the league. Ratings for the draft. Highest ever by far. Ratings for games she plays in. Highest by far. She's bringing more attention to women's basketball than any player has ever done before. Look at me. Those of you that have followed my career, have you ever heard me even talk about the WNBA, let alone devote this much airtime to it? Now, my biggest fear is that this young athlete is going to get seriously injured. And then, God, please grant me the time to stay with my wits about me and on the air and this beautiful vehicle known as Big Play Sports Network so I can just trash the WNBA for the rest of my existence. They don't deserve to make 5 cents, let alone $5,500. 5 cents they don't deserve. No, I'm not saying you give this athlete special treatment. Of course not. The WNBA is a physical league like the NBA is. I always just get a kick out of hearing pundits say, oh, well, basketball's a non-contact sport. Bull. But this kind of conduct, we can't have this in sports. We can't. Yet it's infiltrated us. Like in every other aspect of our society in this country that is so screwed up. I really cringe and pain over this story and watching that video. Any comment?
I would just say, Bruce, without a doubt that the WNBA is in the most crucial moment of it's ever been in the league's existence, and that begins with Caitlin Clark coming into the league. And I understand that there's welcome to the NBA, in this case, welcome to the WNBA moments with Caitlin Clark. And I understand that these women, of course, you want to show her that, you're very skillful as well, and you've been in this league a while before her, and that you know what's up. And there's basketball plays that have happened, when LeBron came into the league. Of course, there were guys that wanted to get after him, and of course, there's girls that want to get after Caitlin Clark. But there are certain anomalies, like in this case, the one with Kennedy Carter, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, that was just absolutely unacceptable, because what Caitlin Clark is doing for that sport is maybe unlike anything we've ever seen, especially in recent years. And God forbid something did happen to her where she was injured and had to miss time. That not only hurts Caitlin Clark, that not only hurts the WNBA, but that hurts themselves as well. And by themselves, I mean every other single player in the WNBA.
And eventually this too. If they seriously hurt her and it shortens her career or ends her career. All right, lighten things up. The memorial down in Dublin at Muirfield is going to start tomorrow. Scheffler, McIlroy, Morikawa, Hovland, Aberg, Cantley, Matsuyama, they're all there to name a few. And, of course, next week, the U.S. Open. At Pinehurst number 2, it's the third major of the 4. Mike Yeager, the head professional at Columbia Hills Country Club, where I belong, will be joining us on next week's show to preview the U.S. Open. Wyndham Clark is the defending champion who did not even make the cut at the PGA. Who will win the U.S. Open? I can hardly wait. I can hardly wait to come back after this upcoming break to introduce to you Denny Kuntz and what fascinating stories and people he has met in his great career. That's next on Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. Now here is the risk that Brown had to take with those of you who have followed me over the years on radio and television know that I connected with the Lake Club. That's a private club in Poland, Ohio, right outside Boardman and Youngstown. And it's owned by Ed Moransky, the Super Bowl champion lineman of the Raiders. He was an All-Stater at Cardinal Mooney, an All-American for Schembechler at Michigan. And I MC 2 or 3 events there every year ever since. And one of the gentlemen, a member there that I met, is a gentleman by the name of Denny Kuntz. Denny and I have become good friends. He lives right there on Lake Evans, which overlooks, the course overlooks. And we've become close. He winters in Florida. We hooked up down there. I played a round of golf at his beautiful club down there, and it was just the two of us. We had just the most delightful day, and he was sharing some of his stories about all the people he met in his career and all the events that he covered. And I said, you know, Denny, I got to get you on my show. His business was the television trucks, providing the television trucks that televise all these major sports events that you and I have enjoyed watching for decades. Fascinating stuff. Had to get Denny on the air. How are you, my friend?
I am fine, Bruce. It's an honor to be a part of your show.
How did you get started in this business?
Well, it came down to I was in sales primarily in radio for the NBC affiliate in Youngstown, which is also a TV station, WFMJ. And I got exposed to the broadcasting industry and did a little color analysis for high school football for a number of years. In fact, Bernie Kosar was one of the guys that I had the honor of putting on the radio. And my career was kind of at a halt, and I didn't have much growth opportunity in Youngstown. But somebody approached me for an investment to buy what at the time was very new technology in the satellite industry, a mobile satellite truck. And so I invested in a thing with a number of my people, including my father and some other friends. And again, like I said, I was at a stalemate with my career. No growth opportunity in Youngstown. I didn't want to leave Youngstown. So I decided to quit WFMJ and follow my investment. And I approached the gentleman that I bought the truck from to if he needed a salesman. And he said yes. And it went from there.
Now, your television trucks have covered all these major events, but mostly, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, PGA events and majors. Is that right, Denny?
Well, yeah, I started out primarily just doing satellite uplinking, and I went through the Rolodex, and one of the first customers that I landed on a national level was NESN, New England Sports Network, and he invited me up there to sit down and have a chat. and their offices were located in Fenway Park. And so we go in, I introduce myself, meet the secretaries, whatever. He said, well, come out and sit in my office and we'll chat. His office was down the left field line staring at the green monster. So an unbelievable experience. And I had the good fortune of having Nesson for, 20, 25 years as a customer. And the business kicked off after that. I got some national recognition. And our industry was very difficult. You have to prove yourself. You have to perform. Any type of failure is not acceptable. You know this as well as I do. Black air, silent air doesn't work in our industry. So, in a way, it was pretty stressful, but yeah, certainly loved it. The opportunities were just completely endless. Like you said, the people I've met and the things I've experienced are just amazing.
Name some of the people in that Boston organization, players or front office people over your years with Nesson.
Some of it. Well, the main guy that I worked with forever, his name was Bob Whitelaw. I don't know if you've ever met him. He was the facilities. He in charge of facilities. He later moved after a number of years. I believe it was down to Baltimore, and he got involved with the Orioles organization. And then, it just I lost contact with him, to be honest with you. I didn't know any of the players personally. That's not what my MO was. I mean, my job was to provide equipment to put people on TV. So this may be literally the first time that I've ever been on TV.
Well, but you covered the Red Sox. Your trucks carried the telecasts of the Red Sox. Those were some pretty great teams back then.
They were, but primarily my responsibility was to cover the Pawtucket Red Sox.
Oh,
that was my primary job, and I would cover the Red Sox down in Fort Myers for spring training. We literally had one of my trucks, which was a combo satellite production truck, on the beach at the Pink Shell in Fort Myers. And all the players would come out, and they had a set right out on the beach. And of course, I had my cameras there. They interviewed them and whatnot. And I'd also do the spring training games on occasion as well.
How about the PGA? Tell us about all of that coverage.
The PGA, in the latter part of my business career, turned out to be my biggest customer. With the evolution of the internet and live at was the show that I did in its entirety. I would never was where they put cover a whole field for a day on a par 3 from start to finish. So it was a long day, but that's what I did. That was one of the primary things, and that blossomed into a growth in the international side of things, which I was extremely successful because I didn't provide the big monster trucks, the 54-footers that you see. I had an intermediate size truck, which was a supplement to those trucks, but I also offered transmission. So it was a unique product that I had, and companies like NHK, which is huge in Japan, Tokyo Broadcasting System, which is the exclusive rights holder to the Masters, became good, solid customers for me because they needed not the big truck, but something to supplement the feed that they were getting from the big truck with their own 3 or 4 cameras. And that's what I did. And I was very successful at it.
Who are some of the people you met in the PGA?
Well, the person that I played with, and he played it, I brought him here, and we played in my member guest at the Lake Club half a dozen times. He was the guy that was in charge, and his name was Roger Stevenson. Tremendous fellow, and very, very pivotal in helping me grow my company. And as far as the players themselves, I was never on that side of the business. Actually, it was taboo for us to approach, as you, I think you're aware. You don't approach these professional people. You're really not supposed to. And so it's just low key. You can always say hi and wave at them or whatever. I broke the rules one time and I love to tell this story because it was kind of cute. I was working for NHK during the baseball playoffs. In fact, it was when the Indians were playing the Red Sox. And we were up in that series, 3-1 or something?
Uh-huh.
I think we were a game away from going to the World Series, and we ended up losing it. But that day, I got a phone
Oh, that was
call.
when Eric Wedge was the manager. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I was, that morning, I got a phone call from one of my customers in New York. He said, "Hey, Denny, I got 4 tickets to the game today if you want to go." I said, "Absolutely, done." So I called my wife. I got 3 daughters. I says, "I don't care what you're doing. Drop what you're doing. We're going to the game today. There's no arguing. There's no questions. We're going to the game." So we went to the game. There was no too much grumbling, but I also had a TV credential, all right, because I was working for NHK. So I got the family in. We went to Wheel Call to get the tickets, and we didn't know where the seats were at. So I gave to the usher, and he says, "You're going to have a good time today." Well, they were Dolan seats, the owner's seats. So we sat 3 rows, I think, off the field right behind the Indians dugout. So I took my my daughter out to put the credential on, and I walked out on the field. We were there early. And, of course, you know this, that the TV compound for the trucks is behind left field wall.
Right.
So it opens up thing. And so I took my daughter out there, and I named my trucks after my daughters. And the truck that was there that day was Abby Elizabeth. And so I took them in, and the Japanese were all in there in the truck. And I walked in and said, "Hey, guys, this is Abby Elizabeth." And she was dumbfounded. She didn't know what to do because they all bowed to her. It was kind of hilarious. So we're walking back, and my other daughter's there, and we're still standing on the field, right on the corner of the Indians dugout. And my little daughter had a crush on Grady Sizemore. So we're not, like I said, we're not allowed to talk to the players. We're not allowed to approach them. Just a rule of thumb. So I had a baseball that I picked up, and I gave it to my daughter. We're standing there, and Grady comes trotting in from me out from center field. And he comes right over to where we're at, right where the water stand is or whatever there on the corner. And I said, "To hell with it." I said, "Hey, Grady, you mind signing this ball for my daughter?" And he did it, and she got to meet Grady. And my wife is standing there with my other daughter still in the stand, but right there on the railing. And Grady trotted away. I turned around and said, "Did you get a picture of that?" And my wife goes, "No, I didn't know. I think we were allowed to take pictures. Could you have him come back?" I said, "Really?"
How was it covering the Masters?
Phenomenal. The first time I went there, of course, no pictures, no phones, no nothing. I mean, they will confiscate your cell phone or a camera if you have it. You're not going to get pictures there. But anyway, I was working for, again, Tokyo Broadcasting, and I had my truck in the compound, and I had to have something because they're very strict on passing credentials out. You have to be there for a reason. So my guy that I was working with, he says, "I'm going to have you run the cameras and equipment up to by the clubhouse, by the putting green, and so you're doing something." So that's the first time I was ever at the Masters, and I was there for the whole week. And the very first day I was there, it was a practice round, and I got their starter sheet, and I saw Freddie Couples, who I just have admired forever as a golfer, and he was paired with Nicky Price. And I walked the entire 18 holes with those two guys. By the end of the round, I knew who I was because, I was just very nice guys. But again, and I got to meet, I was sitting in the international comp, and the other player I met that week was Ola Thobel.
Oh, yeah, Jose.
Yeah, and he was coming in for an interview in the TV compound, and he asked us, "Where do I go?" And I said, "It was right. He's standing right in front of me in my truck." And I had that starter sheet. I said, "You mind signing this?" It says, "Yeah." Turned out he won the tournament that year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he owns a green jacket. Absolutely. Oh, wonderful. Now, did you cover any of the other majors?
I went to I can't even tell you how many Super Bowls. What else did I do? I did the NBA Finals for NBA Entertainment when we were in Cleveland. I did that. That was a lot of fun. Olympics was something I was very proud of.
Which Olympics did you cover?
I covered the three that we've been here: Atlanta, Salt Lake City, and Vancouver.
Wow.
Yeah.
How was that experience, Denny?
Well, short of nothing but spectacular. Atlanta was all spread out, so it didn't really have that Olympic feel. Salt Lake City was incredible, just absolutely incredible. I remember standing at the bottom of the ski jump. Again, I could go wherever I wanted to go with the TV credential, so I got to stand exactly right by where the ski jump where they land. You look at them; they're up there. You can't hardly even see them. They look like they're only a foot tall. And then in 10 seconds, they landed right in front of you. That was pretty cool. But Vancouver was really, really special for the family. I took all of them out. I had 4 of my units out there that year. I was working primarily for the Germany. I was also doing the world feed for the Olympic Broadcasting Organization. We did the opening ceremony satellite feed. Of course, there was a fiber path out as well. But the audience was over 100 million people, and it was coming out of my truck. That was, but I think the thing that I was proud of that on that thing was, I bought tickets to the opening ceremonies, and I took the whole family out, and of course, it cost me like $3,000. But we're going through all this security, very intense. It took half hour, 45 minutes before we're getting to walk into the facility where they're having the opening games. And my little daughter goes, "Hey, Dad, look, there's a Sure Shot truck." And it finally dawned on my kids what I did. We're in Vancouver, in Canada, and there's one of my trucks sitting there. And I also got to take them up to Whistler, and we were working for the Germans. We had a studio set up just like you had, and they got to experience all that too. So Vancouver was very special. It really was.
How about your Super Bowls and that experience?
Super Bowls, I'm a diehard Browns guy. I'm a diehard Indians guy. Cleveland, I guess I should just say Cleveland. But as far as Super Bowls go, I probably went to 6, 7 of them. I mean, I got tired of going. And we would always go in a few days early. I think the best one I ever went to was in New Orleans. And I took a friend of mine along with me, and we were down on the field on Friday and Saturday. The players were all working out and doing all the interviews and stuff. So I said, I was never going to come to a Super Bowl unless the Browns are playing in it. So I'm still waiting to actually go to it.
I hope you don't have to wait much longer. The clock is ticking on both you and me. They just re-signed Stefanski and Barry today. We started the show with that. Didn't you do college ball too, Denny?
I did a tremendous amount of college ball. I was in bed with ABC Network. 1 year I had the contract to cover the Pac-12. Yeah, that was quite an experience. That was in 1992, I think I did that. I had that contract, but I also had a lot of work out of the Big Ten with ABC and ESPN, primarily with satellite transmission. The Big Ten network started. I did some stuff with my cameras and whatnot. But I remember at one time I always had a credential. If I went on a show, I just got to wear a tag. I was there for the Ohio State Texas game, which is pretty much for the national title, I believe, as I recall. Was it Vince Young played for Texas?
Yeah.
They beat Ohio State that day, but I remember standing on the sidelines. He threw an out pass right at the end zone line, which is where I was standing. Ball hit the ground. It bounced up right in my hands. that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But Ohio State was always fun to go to. You get spoiled. I don't buy tickets to anything, but that's all part of the perks of the job, I guess.
Right. Any one or two memories that really stand out about everything you've witnessed and covered with your business now that you're retired that you look back upon?
I'm particularly fond of my accomplishments with the PGA. I think we did an outstanding job for them. There were so many things that I did. I did the ABC bowling tour. Chris Schenkel.
Chris Schenkel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember one time I went to ABC again. Of course, they were big on college basketball. And they booked me to go to Temple University. And I got there early. I was a little nervous about it because of the area Temple's in. The truck was going to be safe. So they did provide security for us for that show. It was a noon tip-off, so I got there like at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and everything was going well. So I said, I'm going to go and see the venue. So I'm sitting up in the grandstands at the bleachers, and this gentleman walks up to me and says, "How you doing there, young lad?" I says, "Okay." Brett Musburger. The man sat there and chatted with me for 15 minutes about life. It was pretty cool. That's a very memorable
Did
moment.
you have any thing to do with the old younger viewers aren't even aware of this, the ABC Wide World of Sports on Saturdays?
No, that was kind of before my time a little bit. I'm not that old. I am old, but that was the...
Well, you said you did the bowling. That goes way back.
Yeah, the bowling went way back. I did that for a number of years. I did NHRA. I did the entire circuit for the hot rods. I also did IndyCar, the entire race season for ESPN. I can't, one of your old customers, your old employees, Sports Time Ohio.
Yeah.
Steve Warren.
Good old
we
Steve.
did all the high school championship games for a number of years.
Right. Right. When we had that contract, absolutely. We did all the divisions. Denny, fascinating stuff. I knew it would be. I knew the viewers would find it very interesting. I'm so glad you joined us, buddy. An illustrious career that certainly paid off benefits for you. I look forward to seeing you again out at the Lake Club and hooking up and play. By the way, Denny plays a very mean game of golf, let me tell you. So we really enjoy each other's company. Denny, I can't thank you enough, pal.
All right. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Denny Coots. All right. You have a good one. See you soon, pal. All right. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the Belmont Stakes. It's also the Ask Bruce segment. That's next on Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. Now, here is the risk that Brown had to take with All right, back for the Ask Bruce segment. Want to cover the Belmont Stakes this coming Saturday, but Ryan Denny, fascinating career with all the events that he covered, huh?
That was funny, Bruce. Like, we both looked at each other when he was talking about, I'm just tired of going to the Super Bowl. I'm going to wait till the Browns are in. I was like, oh my gosh, I could never imagine being tired of the Super Bowl. But I will say, honestly, more than the Super Bowl, Bruce, I think it would be really cool, even probably more so, the Olympics. I think that was the coolest thing about it.
Yeah, he covered 2 Winter Olympics and 1 Summer Games. Those were the ones in Atlanta. But all those Super Bowls, the World Series, college football. I didn't know again, the younger viewers, you wouldn't know that bowling show was huge on Saturdays with Chris Schenkel. It aired every week. It got great ratings because it was such a unique show. You don't see bowling shows hardly.
Yeah, that's so cool that he's able to say he was a part of, even, in the background, a part of so many just historical sports moments. I think that's really special.
Yeah, really special. Well, what also is special is the 156th running of the Belmont Stakes, but it's not going to be at the Belmont Racetrack in New York because they're under construction, so they're moving it upstate to Saratoga Racecourse, where it'll be only 1.25 miles rather than the 1.5 miles that the Belmont is usually run at. And the field has a field of 10 horses. Now, we're not going to have a Triple Crown winner, as you know, this year because Seize the Gray was the winner at the Preakness and Mystic Dan, the Derby. But here is the field by post position. Seize the Gray, the Preakness winner, 8-1. Wayne Lucas, the famous trainer, he may yet win another one of the Triple Crown races if Seize the Gray can do it. Resilience is 10-1 in the 2-hole, 6th at the Derby. Mystic Dan, the Kentucky Derby winner, 5-1 odds for Mystic Dan. Number 4 hole, the Wine Stewart, 15-1. The 5-post position, Antiquarian, 10th at the Derby. 12-1 the odds on that horse. Dornach, 15-1, finished 10th at the Kentucky Derby. Protective, a 20-1 shot in the 7-hole, trained by the famous Todd Pletcher. The 8th-hole horse is Honor Marie, 12-1, finished 8th at the Derby, didn't run at the Preakness, but Honor Marie was last in the Derby and came all the way, remember, that was a 20-horse field, came all the way up and couldn't break through, but finished at 8. Sierra Leone, 9-5 odds, was the favorite at the Kentucky Derby, wound up being the runner-up, didn't run in the Preakness, and is indeed one of the favorites, maybe the favorite, to win the Belmont Stakes. And finally, Mindframe at 7-2, another Todd Pletcher horse. Pletcher training this horse has three horses? Three horses in this race. Wayne Lucas has one, and obviously absent a Bob Baffert horse. The Belmont Stakes this Saturday. Ask Bruce segment, fire away, Ryan.
All righty, Bruce. We'll start from Andy, of course, who always comes with a good question. He says, hey, Bruce, we're going back in time to the year 2009. He says, if the Tribe hadn't have traded Victor Martinez to Boston, do you think he would have agreed to sign an extension to stay in Cleveland like Jose Ramirez did?
No, simple and sweet. I have inside dope on that. Back then, I said it then, I'll say it again, no. And CC Sabathia, the same thing. That was during the same era. They were both destined to test the free agent waters and make the big money, as they did. A lot of people don't realize that in the CC trade, we actually wound up getting Michael Brantley. There was a contingency with Milwaukee on that deal. If they made the playoffs, then we would get our choice of Brantley or a third baseman by the name of Green, who's obscure, didn't even make it to the big leagues, may have had a cup of coffee and disappeared. But they made the playoffs, and if we hadn't made the playoffs, they would have given us their choice, which would have been this Green. But because they did make the playoffs, the Indians had the choice. They chose Michael Brantley. But absolutely not. They were both destined to test the free agent waters back then, as was Cliff Lee.
Alrighty, this is another Guards one. It says Tristan McKenzie has been brutal as of late. He's giving up a ton of walks and letting a ton of home runs leave the park. Are you worried about him? And do you think the Guardians will go for a starting pitcher before the trade deadline?
Good question. Twofold. And am I concerned about him? Yes, I'd be a liar if I didn't say I'm not concerned about him, particularly watching last night's opening game of the series against Kansas City. He looked good to start and then bombs away with Bobby Witt hitting 2 and Renfroe hitting another. And those weren't cheap shots either. They were to deep portions of left center, almost direct center field. So, yeah, I think we should be a little concerned about him. I think he's got great talent. The biggest concern to me is keeping him healthy. I think he can work his way out of it. After all, we've got the best pitching coach, or one of the top 3 pitching coaches in all of Major League Baseball, in Carl Willis. So if anybody can straighten him out, it's him. But I'm a little concerned about him. Now, the second part of the question about getting a starter for before the deadline, yes, I do believe that Antonetti and Chernoff are going to explore those waters. And indeed, we may come up. I don't know what is available, what we would have to give up in the way of prospects and order. But let's face it, the developmental portion of the Guardians organization is fantastic. They have turned out some great picks. You know, under Shapiro, I thought he made good trades. But drafting under Shapiro during his watch was deplorable. Where the Antonetti-Chernoff era, the trades have been good, but our drafting has been superb. And the development of those draftees has been superb.
Alrighty, hey Bruce, when Gavin Williams finally gets healthy and returns to the starting rotation, what do you think are fair expectations to have for him?
You got to imagine it's like spring training for him when he does come back. Now, he'll have some rehabs, obviously, and hopefully wear off the rust. But he's got to be like spring training. I don't know if we should even have high expectations of this kid, even though he's tremendously gifted, and we sorely need him in that rotation. After all, we got a bullpen game tonight with Sandlin going for the Guardians.
Hey, Bruce, how do you feel about David Fry's recent breakout? And one, do you think it's sustainable?
Well, you know, I like Fry a lot, and one of the and Freeman too last night getting the home run. We talked about that earlier in the show. You know, it's interesting. I think we're all surprised at the power that our team has displayed thus far. I don't think any of us anticipated they would hit this many home runs. They're manufacturing runs beautifully. The way they run the bases, the way they try to extend a base, hits, singles and doubles. But most importantly, what impresses me about their offense, and this is the hardest thing in my opinion in baseball, 2-out clutch hits with ducks on the pond. There's nothing more frustrating than to strand ducks on the pond when you've got to rally in a tight game, whether you're leading by one, tied, or trailing by 1, 2, or 3. Nothing more frustrating. And that's the hardest thing to do, to get 2-out clutch hits. And we're doing it this year like we did a couple of years ago. Jimenez is one of the best at it.
Alrighty, this last one comes amidst Kyrie Irving making his return to the NBA Finals. Hey, Bruce, do you think Kyrie Irving should have his jersey retired and in the rafters for the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Oh, I think the Cavaliers undoubtedly will retire Kyrie Irving's jersey. Heck, they've got more jerseys retired than the Boston Celtics, for God's sakes, and we've only got one championship compared to about 50 for them. I'm being facetious, of course, but that's my nature. And I'm not saying that these guys aren't deserving of the accolades and the acknowledgement, but there's something to be said about just retiring every Tom, Dick, or Harry. And I'm not saying that the Cavs do that, but we do have an awful lot of guys' jerseys retired that I don't know. I think in other portions of the country would be questioned seriously by honest, fair brokers that do what I do for a living. But I do think that without question, Irving will be retired. And I think justifiably, he was part of that championship team. And without him that year, we wouldn't have won it.
Arguably the biggest shot in Cleveland history. And that'll do it for Ask Bruce.
No question about it. And that's all the time we have for this week's version of Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. Hope you enjoyed the show. Next week, Mike Yeager, head golf professional, Columbia Hills, will preview the U.S. Open. Plenty more to talk about. By then, I think, hope, and pray the NBA Finals will have begun. Although if they can find a way to hype it and extend it even more, I wouldn't put it past Silver and his entourage either. Just kidding. All right, we'll see you next week. I'm Bruce Drennan on behalf of Ryan Smith. Until then, as always, and most importantly, you remember, I love you, Ohio. And I